whenever you start any business, it's going to be hard. You're going to have major setbacks, but like how often, like how much can you take, like getting punched in the face and like keep on going? You need to get your dedication and your consistency like down packed as soon as possible, because if all these different things run through your minds that you might want to start investing in or doing this, like you need to get like super focused and picking one thing and just become extremely disciplined for at least 90 days, 6 months, whatever it may be.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Learn Like a CPA show. I'm your host, Ryan, today, and we have a guest on that I actually got to meet when I spoke at the STR Wealth Conference in Nashville back in March. We had I think it was about 1,100 attendees there. It was an awesome conference. It's definitely the best conference that I've ever been to in regards to real estate, and that's been true for the 2 years in a row. So I spoke at the first one in 2022. I spoke at this one in 2023, and I will also be speaking at the one in 2024. But enough about me and more about Austin, our guest today. So Austin has a background in wealth management. So you began your career in wealth management in Chicago, which is where I'm from, at the age of 24. Since moved to West Palm Beach. Currently has a portfolio of properties in Chicago, North Carolina, West Palm Beach, and Hollywood, Florida. Interesting fact about me, I actually just bought a property in Hollywood, Florida. Austin's also the managing partner of the Lux Co-host. And over the past 90 days, he's been able to bring properties under his team's management that will gross over 1.25 million in revenue. Austin is also passionate about helping new investors escape their 9-to-5 job. Austin, how are you doing today?
Doing good, my friend. Doing good. Excited to get into this with you. I'm glad that we've been able to stay in contact since the conference. And yeah, dude, you always bring so much value. So I'm hoping to be able to reshare some of that with some of your listeners today too. But super excited to get into this and talk about all our deals that we have going on in Florida with myself and you too. So I think this is going to be a great episode.
So this is a question for you because we haven't been over this yet, but did you meet me in Nashville, or did you hear about my brand before Nashville, or like when did you find out about my brand? I'm curious.
Yeah, man. So I was at the first SDR Wealth Con in Nashville 2 years ago. And I saw you speak on stage. So Ryan was like the youngest guy on stage by probably 20 years. So super super great motivation to see somebody around my same age bracket speaking in front of over 1,000 people. So you guys haven't been to the SDR Wealth Con or you haven't heard about it, definitely look it up after this podcast. The biggest players in the SDR world, they come out there. So it's great networking, great value. I definitely recommend that. And then this past year, probably a few months ago, is when me and Ryan finally met in person, and we started talking from there. So been in contact ever since, and he's a great guy overall.
So you began your career in wealth management in Chicago. Where did you work at?
Yeah, man, it was you're probably familiar with it. It's one of the largest banks in Chicago. It's called BMO, Bank of Montreal. So I started there after college. I had like a little bit of downtime before I started my role. So I graduated in December of 2018, and then my job started in like June of 2019. So before I did that, I had like a short gig as like a valet before that position started, and just really started listening to like Bigger Pockets, how everybody else got it started, and just learning on my slow days, like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And then that's really what ignited my my real estate investing career and what brought me up to Chicago to start investing there.
That's actually crazy because that's kind of similar to what happened to me. So I graduated in December 2019, and I had about 6 months before I started at Deloitte in June of 2020. Mm-hmm. And I had all this like free time. I was studying, but I was also listening to a lot of podcasts. And that's actually when I got started in real estate. And so by the time I had started my career in public accounting, I was like, screw this. I want to do real estate full time. So I think we had very similar backgrounds with that, except I didn't really start with Bigger Pockets, to be honest. I started listening to like real estate tax podcasts by these guys, and I just got hooked on, real estate tax strategy. And that's what I've been teaching, preaching ever since. So.
Yeah, dude, it's great. I feel like we all have like an aha moment, but the majority of people, they don't have the aha moment till they're like in their 30s, they have kids and they have all this debt over their head, and it's just like, damn, I don't want to keep doing this till I'm like 60 and retire. And so one day, dude, I was just I was sitting in this like rotation within like the credit side of the bank within wealth. And I remember just looking over at this guy, and he was like probably in his like mid 50s and used to play like professional football or whatever. And dude, he just looked so sad, man. He always looked so sad every single day. And I sat across from him. And I'm just like, dude, I'm never going to be that guy when I get older. I got to figure out how to get out of here as quickly as possible. So then that's what led me into real estate and keep diving into it. So same thing as you, just learning like what's the quickest way to get out of this 9 to 5 as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said too, especially with our generation. We're definitely some people to kind of poke at that arbitrary box that's set forth for most people, and at least how our parents grew up. So I was actually with the Carwells this weekend, and I was chatting with somebody and talking about how, you know, society normally has this predetermined box that we're supposed to live our life in. So you're supposed to be a wealth advisor, an accountant, a plumber, an architect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're just supposed to decide at 18, 19, 20 years old what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. And it takes like guys like you and I or other people to kind of like poke at that box and say, you know, why do things have to be this way? You know, maybe I can go out, you know, hustle and make some more money on the side and make that my full-time gig. I don't think there's enough people that are poking at that box. I think COVID did kind of light a fire under a lot of people to want to achieve financial freedom quicker, but it's just something that I noticed in our generation compared to our parents, obviously.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think couldn't have said that better because we have so much access to information now compared to like what our parents did back in the day. We have like the internet, we have podcasts. I mean, we have events. Like, I remember back in the day, I was speaking to like my grandparents. They started investing in real estate in like 2012, and they the only thing they had was like those like TV commercial ads about like pitching like flipping houses, right? That was like the only information out there back in the day. And now like there's so many different like ventures that you can go down. Like it could be like real estate investing, it could be like Amazon SBA, it could be like a marketing company, all these different things. And all that information is just on YouTube, right? Like there's so much free value given out there that, I mean, I was telling I have a younger brother now, about to graduate high school next year. And I was telling him, he came down here to visit me for his birthday. And I just told him, I was like, hey man, you don't really need to go to college as long as you have the dedication and you'll learn everything that you want from YouTube. And I promise you in 4 years, you'll make way more money than what your friends are making whenever they graduate. So my parents didn't like that I told them that, but that's just my honest opinion from like everything that I've been doing.
So you brought up something interesting there though. You know, from 2012 to 2022, let's just say the amount of information in the real estate space has probably 100x itself. I'm very interested to see what it would do in the next 10 years. Because like you said, 10 years ago, you know, it was flipping houses, doing these luxury flips, like the get rich quick thing. And now fast forward 10 years, we got people that are buying Airbnbs out of state. We got people that are doing, you know, deals, you know, not in their own backyard. It's just crazy to see how it's came in just 10 years. I'm very interested to see what the next 10 years look like.
Yeah, man. I think before we jump down here, we were just talking about like the appreciation that we've seen here in Florida as a whole. Like the whole market exploded in 2021, right? With massive appreciation, but dude, Florida's still growing and booming down here. So I'm super bullish on what the market's going to be. Like I posted a photo today of this article where 833 people are supposed to move to Florida every single day up to 2027, which is absolutely insane numbers. If you really think about like how much supply that we have of real estate, builders can't keep up, like home prices are going through the roof. It's just going to keep happening here. I think, honestly, man, what I've been saying for the past year is that South Florida is going to end up like turning into like the home prices of like Southern California as more and more people move here. So that's what I think is going to happen.
To go back to your background, so what did your first real estate investment or deal look like?
Yeah, man, of course. So my first one was a house hack in a neighborhood called the near west side of Chicago. So if anybody's familiar with Chicago, it's so you have the Loop, which is like downtown business area, and then if you go west, it's West Loop, which is like where the majority of like the great restaurants are. And then the neighborhood to the west of West Loop is where I bought my first place. So it was a traditional duplex, but what I was looking for is the opportunity to add value to that house with the potential to add another unit. So in Chicago, we have these things called 2 flats, 3 flats, and pretty much just each level is like where a family can live. So I found a property super close to the Blue Line, which is the train to go into Chicago. And it had a basement entrance on the front and a basement entrance on the back. So I was able to add a kitchen down there and add another tenant, which increased my cash flow by say like $2,000 a month. So I lived in one unit, and then we completely rehabbed the unit. I started rehabbing it myself, and then learned I didn't like doing that. Hired a contractor, paid too much money in contractor fees, then found a handyman, and then finished up that project. And then literally within like 6 months, it like appreciated. I bought it for like 320, and then appreciated, like had a value from an appraisal at 475. Literally
Wow.
6 months just from forcing that appreciation, the market going up, and then the rehab itself. So yeah, so that's the first one that I bought in Chicago, and then just went into short-term rentals after that.
So did you have to get it when you added the next unit? Did you have to get it rezoned, or was it a multifamily zoning when you first bought it, or how did that work?
Yeah, exactly. So as long as you meet like a certain height requirement, you're able to like rezone in Chicago. I can't remember. I think it's like 9.5 or 10.5 feet. As long as you can reach that, then you can go through the city and get that rezone for the third unit. But it's a pain. It's honestly a pain, and it takes a lot of time and effort to get somebody to do that. You need to find a contractor that has like gone through that process before, just so that you can do it yourself.
So you bought that first property as an owner occupied, and then what kind of made you get into? Because I think you might have had the same realization as me when I first read my. I remember reading like the Brandon Turner books, and it was, hey, you're going to get $250 a door in cash flow, and then 100 doors later you'll be financially free. And I think that was like late 2019, early 2020 is right around when I discovered this thing called short-term rentals, and it was just like, oh wow, I mean, I could replace the time and energy and effort to get 10 doors with the price of doing one deal, right? Potentially making $2,000 a month cash flow on some of these properties. So what made you make the jump from, because then did you buy a short-term rental in Carolina to start, or where did you go?
Yeah. So I was moving down to West Palm. COVID had hit. I was tired of Chicago. I'm originally from Florida. It's way too cold for me up there, man. I don't know how you guys do it. The freezing winters. So I was just like, all right, I'm gonna move back to West Palm. I'm gonna do the same process again, buy a long-term rental, trying to hit $2,000 in cash flow a month. And I'm looking down here, and the prices for multifamily are just absurd, and the ones that aren't absurd are like in terrible locations, like absolutely terrible locations, like in the hood. Like, don't want to walk down the block because you might not come back from the block.
Florida, especially Hollywood, reminds me a lot about Chicago. Like,
yeah,
you could
man.
be in the neighborhood, but if you're on the wrong street, like you might get your wallet stolen.
Exactly. It's block by block. So yeah, man. So I'm looking at these multifamily. It's not really making sense. I was using an agent down here for the first one, and she had a short-term rental in this neighborhood called Northwood, which has seen like stupid appreciation. Like it's like the biggest jump in Palm Beach County that we've seen for one neighborhood. She had one in there, and she was grossing like 175,000 a year. I'm just like, dude, this is absolutely insane what these numbers are hitting. And then I started researching different neighborhoods that have like non-HOAs with a pool. There's only a few different neighborhoods in South Florida because the majority of neighborhoods have like HOAs because there's mainly like a lot of money down here in South Florida. So it's hard to do. Found the neighborhood, found the next house, $420,000, and submitted the offer the same day, closed in 30 days. And then the first year, that one grossed like 120K. So rockstar deal, awesome find. And then from there, I just kept on buying. I bought more in that neighborhood, bought one more in that neighborhood. And then I started looking in North Carolina and a smaller town called like Bryson City. So if you fly into Asheville, if anybody's familiar with that, it's like about an hour and 20 minutes to the west of Asheville, and it's on the other side of the Smoky Mountains. So everybody knows Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, but on the direct side of the Smoky Mountains, that's where Bryson City is. So I bought in there. Next one, it did decent. It wasn't the same numbers that I was seeing down in South Florida. So from there, I bought in Hollywood, Florida. And I remember looking at like the AirDNA numbers, and like it was like supposed to gross like 175 grand. Things slowed down. 2021 wasn't a thing anymore in 2022. So I think we ended up grossing somewhere around like, I want to say like 115, 120, which was still like decent numbers, but it wasn't like a grand slam that we thought we were going to see. So, yeah.
And so the short-term rental that you bought in Florida first, did you use a 10% down loan, or how did you acquire it?
Yeah, no. So that one I did a 10% down second home loan. So I still had my job in Chicago, got in there. Interest rates were still semi-low for second home loans, but like if a lot of people don't know, what ended up happening is a lot of people started investing with second home loans in Florida. And so they started raising the interest rates for second home owners because people were buying them as SDRs, right? Because you're only going to live there 2 weeks out of the year, so on and so forth. But I was still able to get in there before like that went into effect. So that was a benefit to my side. And then from there, I just started using DSCR loans to fund the rest. So if you're not familiar with a DSCR loan, it's a debt service coverage ratio loan that you're able to finance it off the long-term rent. So as long as like the long-term rent support the current debt on that property, then you can potentially make that a short-term rental for yourself, and it doesn't go off of your income, your W-2 income.
And are you able to find that in Florida now? Like we just closed on $1 million property, and there's no way it would rent for $10K a month or 9, 8, as a long-term rent. Because I was under the assumption now on DSCR at least that it was just really hard to get those to pencil out, especially in a market like Florida where nobody's going to pay that for that. But but it'll still rent for $200,000 as a short-term rental.
Yeah. So personally, I've never bought it. So I like to stay within like a purchase price range of like 600K or less, like right at like 520 to like 620. Like that's where I like to stay. So with like the current debt, you're looking at somewhere around like 4K like a month, and it's still possible to find places that that do it that way. But I mean, if you're buying $1 million property, it's very, very difficult to like find a DSCR loan to like make those numbers work.
Mm-hmm. And so how far along once you were buying properties did you get into co-hosting or property management?
Yeah, man. So it was funny because
hey guys, just wanted to interrupt the podcast today to let you know about my Facebook group, Tax Strategies for Real Estate Investors. We have over 6,300 real estate investors in the community actively engaging every single day. You're going to learn all my top tips. You're going to get to network with other professionals, and you're going to get to see all the past recordings and all the past posts in that Facebook group. So make sure you join today. It's going to be linked in the podcast below. And now back to the show.
Yeah, man. So it was funny because I had my own co-host. I was like managing my properties for me. I was paying them like 15%. I'm just like, dude, this is absurd. I could literally hire somebody, pay them like a salary, and like I would probably pay less than what I'm paying my co-host. But at the same time, my mind kind of opened up and I was just like, dude, like why don't I just do the same business module myself, bring everything in house, and I can manage other people's properties and make like an extra $1,000 a month per property.
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning of this year, I started like my technique's a little bit different than how other people find their co-hosting deals. Is I source properties that are on the MLS that are furnished, non-HOA pool. I cold call them. So I was cold calling. I was getting like a lot of traction with potential clients, but I didn't have like a strong operations manager in place. So I was reaching out to this lady that I was going to partner on this boutique hotel with in Maggie Valley. And I was just explaining like the difficulties I was having. She was just like, well, I've been doing this since like 2015. I have the systems in place. I think it would make like a good partnership. So probably, I think like around mid-February, we went into business together. We formed the LLC, and then she's been taken off ever since. So she handles all the operations, all the onboarding, everything like that. And I just bring on the new clients. And then from like our 90 days is literally, I think today or tomorrow from when we started business together. And now, like you were saying, like in the beginning of the call, we're at over $1.25 million in like growth revenue and the properties that we've been able to onboard. So it's moving pretty quick. So yeah, that's a little bit about like how we ended up doing co-hosting.
So you probably looked at one of the hotels that I looked at Maggie Valley, to be honest with you. I don't know. Maybe.
Was it the Scottish Inn?
No.
No, it wasn't Scottish Inn. Yeah, it was funny. We were under contract for the Scottish Inn and couldn't figure out our financing. It was just like that time of the year in 2022 where you couldn't get financing for motels, and like deal just fell apart. So
is there go ahead, sorry.
No, it's funny though, because I think Bill ended up getting that Scottish Inn deal. So we were talking to him when we were going through that whole process.
So talk a little bit about how your personal financing has changed since you've been full-time self-employed now. are you at the point where you're doing DSCR or commercial loans to acquire your properties, or what does that look like? Because I know for me, I just filed my tax return, so I actually have 2 years of self-employed returns, which is like the gold mine, and so now I can actually get traditional conventional financing on some properties, better terms than DSCR or commercial. So
Yeah, no, man. So like it's still DSCR for the time being because last year was like my first year going like full time in real estate investing. So my income wasn't substantial amount. So after this year, I should be good to be able to get some of that traditional financing moving forward. But I mean, honestly, if I'm taking down a hotel deal, like let's say it's like, I don't know, 7 keys to 25 keys. I'm going to try with everything that I have to get some owner financing to do it, just because, I mean, that's the best way, in my opinion, to take down commercial deals at this point in time. And then, I mean, we're raising capital too for some of these deals too that we're looking at. So probably be like I'm sure you're familiar with it, like how they do in multifamily at like a 70% LP, 30% GP split. That's what we're looking at doing moving forward. But mainly the goal is to get seller financing 20% down with like an interest rate of like around 5%. Lower, better, but not much higher.
So you're wanting the seller to take on you're going to put 20% on cash. The seller's going to take on the remaining
80%. Yeah, and then you do a balloon payment after five years, refinance it and pay off the seller or get debt on the property for the first time.
So I'm glad you brought up the seller financing, because this is something that I love talking about, and I don't have a lot of people to talk about it with. Is the idea of like buying old mom and pop run businesses, and whether it is campgrounds or RV parks or hotels or even just the normal business. Like I listened to Cody Sanchez talk on Andy Frisella's podcast, and she it was so funny because she talked about how when she contacted sellers, if they had like an AOL or a Yahoo email, she immediately knew that she could get a good deal. And that's exactly what happened when when we bought a campground. And it was, the seller had an AOL email, and you go online and like they weren't even taking direct bookings for their campground. They were doing everything by pen and paper, like super outdated, inefficient. They weren't retargeting past guests, which I'm a big proponent of that. It's 7 times easier to sell something to somebody who's already bought a product or service from you than it is to acquire a new customer. And I don't think a lot of Airbnb hosts are doing like retargeting ads or even Facebook ads, implementing StayFi, grabbing guest emails. And that was a way we were able to kind of, because an interesting stat is, the SBA has done studies on this, and they've said, hey, there's going to be so many of these small businesses that these owners are going to retire within the next few years. So their son or daughter doesn't want to take over the business, and they, quite frankly, can't sell, because even if they sold their business, they're left with a bunch of cash. But if that cash is not making them money, they're just going to blow it all, right? And so that's where like seller financing becomes pretty enticing to buy out some of these mom and pop businesses.
Exactly, because usually these mom and pop owners, right? They're not living like extremely lavish, right? They're probably just paying their bills, and then they have some extra like cash on the side. But if you say they have like a monthly like expense amount of like $50,000 a year, that debt that you're going to be paying them in like interest like should cover their expenses, right? And then like, hey, look, I'm going to be paying you the certain amount over the next 5 years, and then we'll give you everything back as well. So where are you going to put this money if you just take a lump sum right away? Right? It'll give you a couple of years to think about like different investment opportunities that you could potentially go down, and then still make enough money to cover your expenses and a little bit more on the side. It's all about like the pitch at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, it's that's actually how I picked up my second property. Was the guy that I bought my first property from. And I didn't even know this at the time because I think I was just inexperienced, and I should have looked on the county assessor website for his name, because I would have known he had multiple properties listed. But I bought this duplex from him, and it wasn't but maybe 10 days after. This was back when I was still at Deloitte, my W-2. And he had messaged me. He goes, hey, I have 6 other ones for sale in the Chicagoland area. Are you interested? And I told him that my finance, hey, I can't really, my W-2 only allows me to borrow so much money at the time. And I said, are you interested in seller financing it to me? And he had no idea what it meant. And it took about 2 or 3 lunches and coffees with him to kind of warm him up to the idea. And because the way I pitched it to him, I said, hey, you don't want to sell all these properties in 1 year, because then it's going to stack on top of your capital gains bill. Your income is going to be super high. You want to like spread those out over a few years, or, and seller financing on the seller side is one way for them to stretch out their capital gain bill. So I just got off the phone with somebody the other day where they're going to sell their property, their deal, for a $500,000 gain. Well, if you sell it normally and pay the taxes, you're going to pay 20% of 500 grand. You're going to send 100 grand to Uncle Sam in year one. Versus, let's say you seller finance that deal over 10 years. You spread out the 500 grand over 10 years. So you're going to be paying taxes on 50 grand every year for 10 years, 20%, 20%, 20%, rather than having to pay 20% on the 500 grand up front. And so it severely minimizes the tax burden for somebody. And especially like a mom and pop that you mentioned, that they're still going to need that paycheck to cover their expenses. It is arguably, the best pitch to somebody like that.
I never really thought about that pitch that way, about the tax side of things. So you bring a really good point there. You bring up like a great point.
Because not only are they paying less in taxes, but they're stretching it out over 10 years. So it's like if you give me a loan and you're like, hey, I want you to pay it back in 1 year, and I'm like, no, I'm going to pay it back over 10 years. I'm winning at that point, because like I'm deferring my cash outflow to you, and you're losing, in fact, because with inflation, by the time I give you that money in 10 years, it's worth a lot less than what it would be worth if I gave it to you immediately up front. So it is a win-win for both parties. Have you guys used any SBA loans to acquire?
No, I haven't used an SBA loan. Okay. But we've gone through the process. It's not too hard, right? You just got to fill out all your net income and your net worth and pretty much what your assets are. Fill out that form and then you submit it to the bank. But pretty sure like SBA loan is like 10% down, right? But the issue that we had though, because we thought about even doing the SBA loan with Maggie Valley, but the lenders want you to actually like that to be like your main like source of income. Like you're treating that as like your main business. So we got some pushback because me and my partner, we have like properties spread out across like the whole US. They're just like, all right, it's just really just an investment. You're trying to take advantage of like a government loan. So they're very like particular about that, at least the lender that we were talking to at the time as well. One thing I would bring up, if anybody's thinking about using an SBA loan, it's a great way to get in with like low cash down, but be some hurdles to get through.
So let's take a step back. What would be some actionable advice that you give to people that are young and want to get into real estate or interested in property management or owning their own properties, or, just real estate in general? What sort of advice would you give to people?
Yeah, man, I think the biggest thing that I would say is you need to get your dedication and your consistency like down packed as soon as possible, because if all these different things run through your mind, so you might want to start investing in or doing this, like you need to get like super focused and picking one thing and just become extremely disciplined for at least 90 days, 6 months, whatever it may be. A good thing that I did at the beginning of this year when I started co-hosting that I might like recommend to like the listeners is do 75 hard, which is pretty much like building your dedication to see if you can actually get through like this intense program. And then from that point, once you finish the program, you come out like as like somebody completely different. So one of my favorite quotes that a lot of people that I heard one time when I first started investing in real estate, this was like 3 years ago. So it's like the reason people fail is because they aren't disciplined enough to be consistent. If you're consistent, you're going to end up getting there. But if you're not consistent, you're going to start something new, and then you're just never going to get to the finish line. So consistency is everything, as well as discipline.
Yeah, I used to hear a quote a lot. Dave Ramsey actually used to say it, believe it or not, but he used to say discipline is the bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. And I think to your point, like a lot of people give up way too quick, way too early on ideas that, don't work out. I mean, think about how many, overnight successes there are. I mean, Oprah is like an amazing example. Like she didn't get her first TV show till she was like 40, and it's like, imagine if she would have gave up, right? Like, or all these other people. And there's not, and I've admittedly, I'm pretty big into lifting weights and working out. I tried doing 75 hard. I failed on, I think like it was day 14 just because my body was the 2 workouts per day. I was going hard as shit. And
Yeah.
I should have gone a lot. I should have just lowered the weight, kind of made the light weights feel heavy. But I lost on day 14, so I'm actually looking to start it back up. But doing something like a 75 hard, which is more of a mindset change than anything, and a disciplined teacher. And then, part of 75 hard is you have to read, what is it, 10 pages a day of a book.
Exactly.
And, couple that with, if it's 10 pages of a Bigger Pockets book, or maybe it's, listening to a podcast while you work out or whatever. I think the 75 hard in tandem with the real estate is great because I'll let you guys in on a little secret too. I think being fit, especially I know at least on the accounting side of things, most people are used to like accountants being like overweight, punch forward, combine that with also like real estate, being in amazing fitness shape. There's something I'll say this, I'm more likely to do business with somebody that's fit and super in shape because I could tell like they get their shit done and they're going to take care, I could trust them to take care of me and my money or my business. If I see somebody that, pardon me, but like if I see somebody that, might be overweight or like doesn't seem to care about their health, like why should I think that they're going to care about my business or my money, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a
that's
bad
great.
outlook, but
No, man, I think that's great, man. Like if I see somebody that's fit, like, and like works out like a lot, I can tell right away that they're a consistent, disciplined person. You see somebody that's fat, man, maybe been in the gym like once a year. I mean, how, like you said it like the best, like why are they going to be consistent and disciplined with any business I want to do with them in the future? They're not. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that they're not going to, but there's a higher possibility of them not compared to somebody that goes to the gym on a regular basis. So it's a little nugget right there for anybody looking to get in business with any fit or fat people. Consider that.
All right, guys. So look, eat your protein, get some cardio in, but not too much. And just lift heavy shit. Don't be lazy. And,
yeah, dude. I think the other thing is like whenever you start any business, it's going to be hard. You're going to have major setbacks, but like how often or like how much can you take like getting punched in the face and like keep on going, right? Like that's huge because I have setbacks every single day with the co-hosting business. Some people say, hey, look, I'm going to sign up. They decide not to sign up. I just say, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to keep moving forward because eventually somebody's going to sign up. But hey, if I stop, then like I'm not going to make that extra cash that I want to make at the end of the day. You just gotta be okay with saying like, hey, look, this client might not sign up. Maybe they do, but I'm just going to keep moving forward no matter what.
Yeah, man. Anything else before we wrap it up?
No, man. I think we touched on a lot of good stuff for sure. I hope that we added some value here for the listeners, and then feel free to reach out to me as well. Anybody that heard this podcast, happy to answer any questions. Yeah,
where can listeners of the show find you?
Yeah, man. I'm on Instagram. It's my handle is Austin Palacios _ so AUSTINPALACIOS _ and as well as my email is apalacios@theluxcohost.com, which is our property management business.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.